What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Sunday night, everybody. Okay, it's been a long week for me. I was doing family stuff all day, so you get the videos near the midnight. So the first one is something that Ross Coulthart discussed today that I was trying to find a proper way to discuss it because I don't believe it, really. I think it's one of the most famous conspiracies about UFOs. And Ross Coulthart touched on it because somebody asked him today. And I do want to expand on it a little bit, find a few links that potentially could be one of the main reasons why this is so rushed or feels so rushed, at least the control disclosure part of it. But the question is about the Project Bluebeam, which is a conspiracy theory that is, in my opinion, a fake conspiracy theory. But there are some elements that do play into what's actually happening right now. And unfortunately, people associate this channel with some of that because they didn't understand the context in which I delivered that news. I'm talking about that video about the alleged object and the James Webb telescope and all that. My intention with that is try and look for potential places where there is misinformation about this and disinformation. And then after almost a year after I reported on that, Jeremy Corbell talked about a lie that was going to be propagated. This is not the first time that we hear about something similar to that, but it does feel like a lot of the people involved in the control disclosure movement and even other different efforts do seem to think that there is some sort of an event or something that will happen that will affect everybody. It is not clear what it is. I'm going to tell you some of the options that there are. Obviously, the most obvious one is that this is just misinformation in order to weaponize space even more. And this is, ironically, this is the one option that has been the most criticized and demonized out of all of those. Because the person that talks about this, weaponization in space, it's somebody that has been very, very much criticized due to her views, due to her associations. But what she says is very interesting. And I just want to show you what she says. And this is the person that Ross Coulthart is talking about in this question that he was asked today on Reality Check.
Proctor Hopkins reaching out to us on X. Has Ross looked into the Project Bluebeam claims and how they could be eerily echoing current events?
Project Bluebeam, the most hoary chestnut in all of the UFO conspiracy theories. So, Project Bluebeam, I'm assuming this is the one you're talking about. There was a Canadian guy, I think he's now passed, called Serge Monast, and he came up with this wacky conspiracy theory, and I do think it's wacky because it didn't happen when he said it was going to happen. I think he said it was going to happen in 1995 or 1996, and essentially it was a staged fake alien invasion leading to eventually a Luciferian conspiracy to take over the whole world in some kind of authoritarian world government. He wrote a book called Project Bluebeam, and the really cool thing is NASA was the villain. NASA was leading this one world conspiracy. And look, frankly, I think the claims of Serge Monast about Project Bluebeam are a load of hogwash. And I'm not saying that the idea of a potential staged alien invasion threat isn't a possible stunt that might be pulled by somebody.
What? Okay.
And the gatekeeper group that are protecting this legacy program. That's long been a completely separate speculation by people like Dr. Stephen Greer from the Disclosure Project. And it goes back to, I think, claims made by a lovely woman called Carol Rosin, who I've had the privilege of meeting, who was Werner von Braun's assistant. And a lot of people have tried to point holes in Carol Rosin's claims, but essentially Carol was a PA to Dr. Werner von Braun, the former SS officer.
Yep, she is who she says she is, Dr. Carol Rosin. And let's continue listening to Ross, but her credentials do check out.
Who was a Nazi who was brought out under Project Paperclip and incredibly was protected and given the opportunity to run the entire Apollo space program. And one of the things about Werner von Braun is he always said that he was reluctantly dragooned into the SS, so I should make that point. But essentially, I think he was, at the end of his life, very skeptical and concerned about what he believed the US government was doing with its knowledge, allegedly, of non-human intelligences. And he allegedly confided to Carol Rosin, who's told me about this, and she's told many people about this, including Dr. Stephen Greer, who was the first to break it, that there was going to be some kind of staged alien invasion as an excuse to impose authoritarian control on the planet, and that they would use possibly holograms and projected images of UAPs craft as a way of restraining the public and controlling public opinion. Is it true? I don't know. I've got no idea. I mean, it's an allegation that's been around for years. I actually don't doubt that Werner von Braun did say it to Carol Rosin. A lot of people have tried to point holes in Carol, but I find her credible. I think she's telling the truth. I do think Werner von Braun was worried about the potential misuse of the technologies that he allegedly became aware of that the United States was in control of, as allegedly my friend and informant Uri Geller, the famous psychic, told me in a previous Reality Check interview. He says that he was shown alien bodies by Dr. Werner von Braun. I just don't think all of this is complete hogwash. There's some truth in this. I just wish I knew what it was. So, yes, I think Project Bluebeam, as proposed by a Canadian guy called Serge Monast probably 30, 40 years ago, is a load of bollocks, because it never happened. I think he said it was going to happen in the mid-90s. It didn't happen. But I think that claims that the people responsible for the legacy program might try and stage some kind of stunt, look, I wouldn't put it past. If Richard Dolan is right, if our friend Richard Dolan, the noted UAP academic, is right, that there is some kind of breakaway civilization on this planet that essentially is using this technology to gain some kind of superior advantage to the detriment of the rest of humankind, then I guess it's not at all inconceivable that they might try and use some kind of fascist takeover by using a stunt such as a fake alien invasion.
Let me show you what Carol Rosin said. This is part of what she said. The first part has to do with her conversation with Dr. Werner von Braun.
At this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against asteroids, we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over, during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie. A lie.
Yeah. And this is another aspect that she spoke about, which is similar to what Bill Maher said on the interview with Dan Farah about historically, there haven't really been too many incidents that have been considered overly negative when it comes to UFOs. There are some exceptions, such as Virginia, for example, and other events, and the cattle mutilations too. That seems really, really violent. But for the most part, historically, I'm not sure there has been a lot of violent occurrences with UFOs. But this is another part of what Carl said.
So when I hear that there's a possible threat of extraterrestrials, and I look at the history of thousands of years of possible visitations, recorded history, and when I hear now the stories of the disclosures of honest military intelligence industry people who have had experiences with UFOs, with crashes and landings, with live or dead bodies of extraterrestrial beings, people from out in the universes. And if I'm ever told that these are enemies against whom we have to build space-based weapon systems, based on my own personal experience of having worked in the military-industrial complex on weapon systems and military strategy, I'm going to know it's a lie. It's a lie. And I'm not only not going to believe it, but I'm going to go out as loudly as I can and tell everyone to take a look. They have not taken us away yet. We're still here after thousands of years of visits. If in fact they're still visiting us now and people are working with ETs, live or dead, if they're taking photographs, if they're experiencing all kinds of UFO experiences, then we have to look at this as something that is not a hostile occurrence. It would be my guess, based on my own experience of having traveled to countries whom we've been told had hostile intentions against the United States, it would be my hope and my intention to do everything I could to work with people who are working to communicate with and cooperate with these extraterrestrial beings, because they're clearly not hostile. We're here. That's enough proof for me.
So that's Carol Rosin. And something that happened recently was that a good friend of the show, Jason Somoza, released a video that I was waiting for a while, because he's doing a deep dive into Jacques Vallée's Forbidden Science Volume 6, which is the most recent one. And there are a couple of lines on that book that Jason highlighted that I want to use for this video as well. They have to do with Dr. Jacques Vallée reaching a point where he thinks, and the rest of the group thinks, the group being everybody who worked at BASS, Dr. Eric Davis, Dr. Hal Puthoff, Mike Gold, Robert Bigelow, they seem to think that after a long time studying this, through their efforts, that some of it at least might be a threat. It can be interpreted in many ways. So just check this out. And this is a screenshot from Jason's video, which I'm going to link in the description so you guys can check it out. It's amazing as usual, Jason. Great, great work. So this one is the actual one. It says, "My view of the phenomenon has changed. I think the human race is in a precarious position. I want to make the world a better place, but something is coming." That was written on 16th March 2013. Alongside this, he said, "The group felt that an existential threat had been detected." How exactly was it detected? And this ties into some of the stuff that I reported on, which is Lou Elizondo talking to Matt Ford on the Good Trouble Show and starting the whole series of videos that I did about the James Webb alleged discovery and what I later found out to be either misinformation or misinterpreted information by the people who got really spooked about it, and about these unclassified meetings inside Congress. Later, I also reported that Colonel Carl Nell was at least part of those meetings. I'm not sure if he was the one who was talking about this, and the people that listened to these meetings, some of them got really scared. I'm not sure if what these people saw was like a different scenario type of presentation, not necessarily telling them that something was coming, but like potential threats, not actual threats, you know? I'm not sure what happened there. I'm sure it did happen, and I'm sure that people got spooked when they were in those meetings. But I don't know the exact nature of the threat, or even if there is a threat. So far, I'm on Jeremy Corbell's camp. I don't think the talk of an alleged spacecraft coming here is real. I think that is misinformation. And this lines up to with what Carol says. But I find it very interesting that Ross is not discounting it. He thinks that the legacy program people could do this, could pull something like this off. That is really concerning if it's a possibility, you know. Jacques Vallée also said this on a personal note. It was only through poring over the vast database that it first dawned on me that this phenomenon was a threat. And this was written a year later after the other screenshots that I shared that are on Jason Somoza's recent video that I'm going to leave in the description. And this is an interesting point that I think we need to touch on a little bit because, yeah, the phenomenon probably hasn't done any mass killings or anything like that, but there are many contact experiences and the abduction phenomenon that is not positive at all. And it's very violating. And that is something that Dr. Rosin is not really counting or considering. It is not. So naturally, I don't think anybody really knows if there's a threat or not. Some people speculate. There's a lot of obviously predictions from remote viewers. I would be really careful when it comes to remote viewers because if you guys have noticed, just with 3i Atlas alone, which is another one of the options, the remote viewers are all over the place. They're talking about different situations, different scenarios. They can't reach like a common ground of what this thing is. And I think that is concerning too. You should really not pay that much attention to what remote viewers are saying because it's not 100% accurate. It's about 60% accurate when you're good at it. So we should be really careful with that. But when it comes to that incoming threat or whatever they think might be, this that Jacques Vallée said, that the group felt that an existential threat had been detected. How was it detected? And this brings me back to this video.
There have been some significant rumors of events regarding UAP that may occur within, like 10 years or so. I don't know if it's something coming or a natural disaster. You hear of something big coming down the pike. Have you heard of these claims? And if so, do you have any idea what it may be?
Yes, I've heard of them. Yes, I'm aware of them, and I'm not able to have that conversation.
Got it.
It's not my conversation to have, but I am aware of it.
So let's talk about the options, right? Because the first option for me is that there is no threat. Because there isn't. Because if you think about it, really think about it, if it's a natural disaster, that could take us out any day. Those are completely unpredictable. That can definitely happen. And we're always in danger of an asteroid hitting us, a massive, massive earthquake above 9 or 10 degrees, a massive hurricane that there are already hurricanes taking place that are really destructive, and you could categorize them as apocalyptic. I don't hesitate to say that. So volcanoes going off, any of that, which is related to nature, which is literally unpredictable, happen. And those are always, for me, one of the first options. If something were to happen, that would be one of the first things that would happen. Solar flares are also very dangerous. So that is also within that realm of things. Something else that could happen, I don't know, a geophysical event, which is talked about quite constantly. If you go to Randall Carlson's work, he talks about this quite a bit. And yeah, it is a scary subject. It is something that not everybody's prepared to listen to. I get it. So that's not talked about that often. But if you look well, you can find a lot of different professionals or semi-professionals who know about this and have studied this for a long time. And they do say that, yeah, there is a danger that something major, massive happens. If you go back to the Younger Dryas period, that seems to have been something like that, like existential threat. So the first option is misinformation. Nothing is happening, and they just want to weaponize stuff. And they're banking on fear to convince people to believe stuff. The other option is the natural disaster option, that involves also the geophysical event or a geophysical event. If you look at what governments and billionaires are doing, they are building bunkers, and they have a bunch of bunkers already. There are underground facilities all across the United States. There's a lot of evidence of that. And that could point towards something that they know might happen and they're not telling the people. And the other option is what Ross was talking about, which is something that I still struggle to accept or to even believe or to even entertain, to be honest with you. But who knows? But you've seen some changes there, because initially when this happened, when I released my video on the James Webb alleged discovery, which was misinformation, in my opinion, I was told by people that Leslie Kean allegedly was talking about this at a dinner. And that turned out to be false, because recently on the Anomalous Coalition, somebody asked Leslie about this and she set the record straight. Check it out.
Okay, so this is a question for me. A few years ago, you said on Kurt Jaimungal's podcast that you believe that we, humanity, would lose something in the near future that we are accustomed to, that we are accustomed to for long. We have been accustomed to. I wonder if you still believe this, and if by any chance you could give us more clues about this claim. I just want to say that, when I was on this podcast some years ago, I made the comment that I thought around 2027, some really bad things were going to happen. And I have been hounded by this so many times on social media. It's like, I just want to say once and for all that I did not have any special insight into some kind of alien invasion that's coming or something like that. And I probably should never have even referenced this. But what was happening at the time was I had talked to some intelligence insiders who were very concerned about the geopolitical situation, which is completely understandable, and we can all have that concern now, of course. And I was just in a state of feeling kind of pessimistic about the future. And I didn't know if perhaps NHI would play some role in the future of our planet if we got into a very catastrophic situation, which could have been either negative or positive in terms of the role the NHI might play. But I was mainly just commenting on a sense of kind of pessimism that I felt about the future of the planet. And I'm sorry that I really can't add anything to that. I don't have any special insight about anything coming in the future, absolutely none at all. And I'm a little concerned that somebody recently made a post, I think on Reddit, about I had some kind of a dinner party after a conference, and I was making comments about catastrophic events that were coming. This just didn't happen. I have no memory of having a dinner party and discussing that. And in fact, this one dinner party that wasn't a dinner party, but it was people over my apartment around when I helped produce a conference in New York. I've asked a couple of those people, did I say anything like that? And they said no. So I really don't want to be focused on this anymore. And I'm just asking people out there to please just drop this whole issue, because I'm tired of it. I don't want to spend time on it. I didn't make these comments beyond what I said on Kurt Jaimungal. And I was not trying to imply that I have some secret knowledge about something happening in the future. So if we could just let that go, everybody, I would be very grateful, because I don't think it's worth spending time on.
When I heard the gossip about Leslie, I did not report on it, because that's not what I investigated. What I investigated was different. And I'm very glad that she's talking about it publicly now, because it was pretty unfair that people were like slapping that onto her without her deserving it, really. But the reality is that, yeah, there is sort of like an urgency that is definitely taking place. Ross made some comments recently as well that he's heard the same, that we're on borrowed time, and phrases like that one, which are scary. I'm not going to lie. And the other options are the ones that scare me the most, if you ask me. The alien invasion seems pretty unlikely, in my opinion, still. But for example, a nuclear war is not unlikely. Look at the world, how it's doing right now. Another option is the technological singularity. We don't know what will happen once AGI is reached and public. We don't know what will happen then. It's pretty unpredictable. Those are the potential options. There's another option that everything could happen at the same time, or a lot of those things could happen at the same time. For now, the most realistic ones are that this is misinformation in order to scare people and to sell weapons. The other one is the potential conflict between nations that could cause something massive, a mass casualty event, and the natural disasters, which are always possible. They could always happen. This includes asteroids hitting Earth. The other ones, I don't know, because historically the phenomenon hasn't been an invasive type of species, at least out in the public. The abduction phenomenon and the cattle mutilations and some contact experiences that are considered negative, they are concerning, but I don't know. Not a lot of people has lost their lives over something like this, as far as I know. Maybe they have, but I don't know if an existential threat, like Dr. Jacques Vallée says, I don't know where that comes from. I would love to know. I would love to ask him, what did he mean by that? And I would like to know why Ross thinks that the legacy program could pull a stunt like that, like a fake alien invasion. That's pretty concerning too. Do you think something will happen? Have you noticed that there are many of these people that are seem to be on a rush? Why do you think that is? What do you think the main reason behind all of this is, of this urgency? Out of all the options that we discussed today, which one do you think could happen? Which one do you think is more plausible? Let me know in the comments. If you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to like, share, comment, hype, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. That's all you need to do in order to help us, and it is what helps us the most. So thank you. But if you want to support us in other ways, there's a few links down there you can choose from. You can also become a member on YouTube, or you can support us through KGRA. Anything you choose to do is always appreciated, so thank you. And that's it for me today on this video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, stay curious and inquisitive like Leslie Kane. Always. Bye.